So this is the Mentoring Matters discussion room, and it is the Mentoring Club's forum to discuss topics about mentoring. We are a global community that believes in changing the world one leader at a time through mentoring. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in the US, and our mission is to provide a mentoring community for aspiring and seasoned leaders. Anywhere in the world, we help working people find mentors who can guide them to develop the skills they need to achieve their career and life goals. We help mentees fulfill their goals through meaningful work that creates positive impact in the world. So we believe that meaningful work is drives us to get the leaders in us out because we care about the results. And as mentees become leaders, our dream is for them to become mentors to others. We want to attract people who believe in our leadership core values. And these are anchored on three values. Number one is trust, number two is leadership, and number three is community. So we believe that integrity, honesty, and commitment are the values that make us trustworthy as individuals and professionals. We believe that health, vision, and execution, the values anchored in leadership, these are values that we need to be successful leaders. And then the last grouping for community, we believe that humanity, contentment, and family, at the end of the day, these are the social grounding values that make us feel fulfilled and happy. And with that, I would like to welcome my co-moderator, Dr. Lesley Petersen. She's based out of New Zealand. She is our mentor. And I'd also like to welcome Shawn, but I will turn over the floor to Lesley.
Thanks, Liesel, and welcome everybody. For today, just to give a bit of a structure to how this session will go, that this Clubhouse session is scheduled for an hour. We're sort of starting a little bit later, but we can manage that. The first 30 to 45 minutes of the room is allocated to the interview with our guest interviewee, Shawn Flynn. And the session is going to be recorded, and the recording will be used for educational and marketing purposes only. Once we've sort of come to the end of Shawn's interview, the rest of that hour will be allocated for comments and questions from you, from the audience. And before we finish, that Liesel will talk a little bit about the Mentoring Club again to sort of complete the session. If people would like to stay at the end of this hour, this club room, to ask Shawn more questions, then please do so. So I am going to introduce Shawn Flynn, our guest speaker for today. Shawn started his career as a business owner, founding and growing a successful company in Beijing, China, before returning to the US to work with companies ranging from fast-growing Silicon Valley startups to established overseas public companies. He brings his international experience working with all stages and sectors of businesses to his role as principal at a premier middle market investment bank with expertise in mergers and acquisitions, raising growth capital, and secondaries. So the topic for Shawn's talk today is what makes a company salable. When you start a company to solve a problem you are passionate about, that you are passionate about, selling the company may not be the first thing on your mind. It isn't a bad idea though, so we're here to learn why from Shawn. So I'm going to ask you some questions, Shawn, and I think we've got several questions that I could ask, but maybe that from your answers, some of those might get answered along the way. But I was just wondering, perhaps a starting question to sort of set the scene, is like, given the title about, we start companies, or a person starts a company, and then thinking about selling it seems a bit strange. So why do people sell their companies?
I mean, honestly, many of them aren't planned. And what I mean by that is, well, there could be a death in the family, and that's the reason to sell a company. There could be a divorce, There could be someone could get sick, they could get a disease, and they're not able to perform or work like they were before, or they need money for the medical bills and they need to sell then. There could be so many reasons why someone would want to sell from, well, they've done it for a long time and they're looking for something else. They're no longer passionate about it. They have this other idea for something they want to pursue, or maybe they've hit those goals in life and it's time for them to retire, or maybe they've grown that company to a point where they say, listen, I've reached everything here. I know that if I sell it right now, I'll make all my financial goals. I'm able to allocate then my time to other things that I'd prefer to do with my life at this moment. So there's countless reasons why someone would want to sell business. Few of them are planned. Many of them are, well, because of something unfortunate happening and they don't have any other choices. And it's a shame, but if people are really prepared and growing their company systematically and really thinking about it meticulously, when those unfortunate events arise, they could still be in a good, strong position to leave their company or to sell it or to transfer or whatever it is at that moment, if well planned out.
Okay, great. Thanks, Shawn. So I'm just thinking with your answer there that, another question I had was, why is it important to have an idea of the exit price before thinking of, oh no, sorry, not that one. I was thinking like, how far in advance should someone prepare before they sell their company? I guess that, well, I can still ask that question, but given that sometimes it could be, you know, as you said, a death in the family or sickness or divorce or whatever, that sometimes that can be so unplanned. But if we perhaps take the other side where you said, when they want to sell rather than perhaps they have to unplanned sell, how far in advance should someone prepare before they sell their company, given that it is a planned decision?
Well, Lesley, if you're thinking from day one, really planning from the start, that's the best situation. Why is that? Because if you're planning from the beginning, you can kind of have that value range of the company needed to exit to fulfill with what you want to do next. I mean, maybe you're spending 5 to 10 years to grow out this company and you're thinking, and I've had these conversations with people in the past where they go, listen, I want to sell my company and retire, but I don't know what the valuation is. We come up with a range and they then talk to their financial planner. The financial planner goes, that's great, but you have to stay and work there probably the next 3 to 5 years to grow this company out at your current growth rate to stay in that comfortable lifestyle that you currently have, that you want to maintain for the next 20 years of your life in retirement. And then they have to think back and, okay, plan that into it. But if they're thinking from day one, okay, I am talking to my wealth advisor, I am talking to my tax planner, I am talking to all these people on my team, that if I can get my company to this certain valuation, I can exit at that point, continue the lifestyle I want, and do the things I need. If you're planning for that valuation range, you have a great head start on so many things versus someone else that might go, okay, I want to sell this company in a year, and then they go to their wealth advisor, tax planner, and they go, yeah, that's great, but you're not going to be able to maintain the lifestyle you want, or you're going to have to drastically cut back, or hey, if you really wanted to do that, you could have sold the company 5 years ago because you're way past that point. I mean, that would be best case scenario, where to hear that news from your wealth advisor of, you could have sold this company in the last several years. I'm not sure why you've been working so hard, but that's very rare. What the best is you have all your advisors, your coaches, your mentors, everyone working with you to get you to that point where on that exit you fulfill your goals, both as an individual, professional, financial, and you're able to move forward. And if you have that point, that goal in mind, there's many things that could be done in that process to add value to the company. So for example, if you're planning on selling the company in the future and you're transitioning out of that everyday role where you're hands on to more of that manager, to more of that, hey, you're going on vacation and stepping back, the company's so much more valuable because you're less there in the day to day. If you're not focused and doing everything personally, and you're bringing in other people that are running these processes, building these systems where everything basically can be written out in a manual that could be handed over to someone, big value driver for the company. If you're looking at it as, okay, I'm going to sell this company in the future, hey, my customer concentration is too much right now. I know that if I diversify, it increases the value of the company because it de-risks it so much, and you're doing that from early on, it's so much better. So building that company from the very beginning with the idea of this is the goal to transition out at this point and to build it in this systematic way to get there. I mean, that's the ideal. I mean, not saying that that's doable for everyone or that's possible, but having that kind of mindset does help a lot. And it's also, if you know that number, you're working towards that goal. It's Oh, it's odd to say, but some people, when they can visualize the steps to get there, they get there so much faster and it's less painful than someone else. It's like when you're hiking a mountain, if you just look at it as I got to get to the next rock that gets me to that other rock, eventually I'll get to the top versus that person that sees the top's overwhelmed. It's a little bit easier to digest to get there, to move forward and to actually execute. So having that plan from as early as possible from the very beginning puts you in such a stronger position for that outcome.
Great, thanks, Shawn. So while I was listening to you, I was thinking about myself. And so it's a bit of a question to get your thoughts on too. And in a sense, you've sort of been answering it. But, I sort of went into my business as a sole business owner. So I don't have a company per se. And at the time that I did that, it was, it's something I wanted to do. I was passionate about it. It was a very principled approach to what the sort of work I was doing in this mentoring space. But I never once thought about, oh gosh, how many years down the track might I sell it? So I get your idea about, having that plan right from day one. What if you don't, like listening in here, I would now know to do that. But back then, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I had no idea that would have been something to do. So what's what could I have done differently right at the beginning, apart from obviously to think like that? But what if there are people who don't know how to think like that because they're not listening to you now, for example?
Ooh, good question. First things is just to kind of write out every day what you're doing. Just jot it down. And then just start thinking, okay, what are the steps that each of these things get done? Step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay, this is a process. Great. How much of this can be automated by either software or a third party? How much of it can be outsourced, maybe a virtual assistant, or what task can be, the first employee, what will they be doing? And just start thinking it that way of processes, tasks, and systems, and kind of growing that out. So I'd say that's one thing to do as early as possible when you're building this business. But also, talking to a coach and that, getting guidance, talking to someone like yourself that can really sit down and go, okay, what's the vision? What's the plan? Where do you see yourself? Okay, now let's work backwards. Let's set these goals, and then taking those goals and getting more help, more advice on it. I'm not saying that to overthink before actually moving forward, but I bet there's a lot of people out there that after they start, they go, okay, I've gotten this far. I'm not sure how to get to the next step. Let me think of what I'm doing. Let me talk to some people. Let me get some help going to the mentoring club, talk to Liesel, and see about, kind of putting some process in place, getting these numbers. Am I, my goals for this company, is it what I really want? Will it get me to that exit that I one day desire? Because, well, I mean, all companies, either one, they get sold, they get transferred, or they get closed eventually. I mean, no one lives forever, unfortunately. So there is kind of that finite date to it. And I mean, there's a lot of people that are okay with just one day turning off the lights. There's other people that want to see it live on, and there's other people that really want to reap the rewards of the work they've done. And it depends if there's that goal in mind, what people see. It's easier to work towards something like that. So maybe just putting pen to paper and writing down where you see the company, where you see yourself at certain times, and just always going back and revisiting it. I mean, maybe where you see yourself in 5 years, maybe 12 months from now, so many things in your life have changed that you're changing those goals. Maybe it's bigger, maybe it's smaller, maybe it's just different. But, you know, having something written down in front of you where you can revisit is a good practice, I'd say, for almost anything in life, but it's, especially for a business.
Yeah, and I really like, I respond to the like write out every day what I do. There's that small step to sort of think, well, I've left it too late, so I don't know if I could sell my business now, but it's actually not too late listening to you. It's more I could start now doing that as much as it would have been useful or good to have done that back when I first went into my own business. But that doesn't mean that I still can't do that now. And just that for me, that listening to you, the essence of like start small and then get into that bigger sort of like the vision and things like that. But I feel I can cope with, I could probably sit down after this meeting and write down, well, what do I do every day in my business, and then go from there. So I like that idea that it isn't insurmountable because I've left it too late. That's what I'm hearing anyway. So
Oh, the littlest changes can make a huge difference in a company. It's incredible just when you're talking to someone and they'll say, "This is my business," and you'll go, "Oh, have you thought of tweaking this little bit of it or changing that little bit?" And it can increase the value so much, and it could just be small things, using your time for something else or rewording this, or who knows. But it's really incredible what big changes can come from small things.
fantastic. Okay, some more sort of technical-ish questions, and this is one that I've just thought of too while I'm listening. And is your database, your client database, an important, or how important is your client database in that sale, that price that would be put on your company?
Good question. So that database really depends on who the acquirer is, how much value it has. So you'll hear things of, "Hey, did you sell to a strategic buyer or a financial buyer? Who is the buyer?" And they'll put a different value on different parts of the business. So a financial buyer, they're going to look at the financials and go, "Okay, how much money is coming in? What's the EBITDA? What's the SD? Whatever it is." The strategic might be looking and going, "Oh my gosh, their buyer list are the exact clients we want to reach out to and upsell our product to, or they're in this market that we want access to." Or there could be so many reasons why that list, it really is, intellectual property of the company. Those relationships could be so valuable. In fact, in a lot of situations, that list of who your clients are could be a lot more valuable to someone else than they currently are for you. It's odd to think about that, but they might have these products or solutions or sales teams or who knows that they go, "Okay, you're able to sell this much, but we know we could sell this much more to these clients that you're working with. And we would love to piggyback on the relationships you've built, the sales channels you've made, the agreements you're currently in. We want our products pushed there. We want to take your product." And then there could just be so much to it. So yes, your current buyer partner relationships, they have huge value. The amount of value depends on who's on the other side of the table. It could be a little, it could be a lot, it could be way more than you could imagine.
So, and sorry, I don't mean to sort of take over this interview with my questions, but I think they will lead to some other questions that we've got here as well in front of me. Um, is and again, I've put myself in the picture. So if I'm sort of looking at finding potential buyers, who would you sort of suggest would be the person you have alongside? Like you talked about mentor, coach, financial advisor, or whomever. So if I was going to sit down and sort of meet people who were like just listening to you now, that they're interested in what they could do and therefore the price they'll put on it, who would be the best person to help me to be able to determine, is that a good price? Because I wouldn't know.
Good question. So to build out your team, a lot of it is going to depend on the size of the company, the sector. There's going to be a lot of things involved. But let's just say for general, there's valuation experts out there that you can get a valuation of your company done, and that valuation could range quite a bit from a a very succinct, short kind of overview valuation to more of a full blown one that could be used in court. You don't necessarily need something over dramatic like that, but there's also websites and software that you can get an estimate. But so there's a valuation expert that could say, okay, based on these things, this is kind of the range that you're most likely going to get for your company. Now, when you work with some experts, hopefully they get the higher end or even beyond that when working with you to sell your company. But let's even talk more about the team. There's other people on the team that most people don't think about. One is that kind of, I don't want to say necessarily therapist, but that coach or someone that can mentally keep you stable and just as a sounding board to walk you through the entire transaction. Because these transactions are very emotional. This business could have been everything you've put in for the last 7 or 10 years. You could have gone through a divorce. You could have mortgaged your home. Who knows what extent was done to build and create this business? Nights and weekends, your friends, who knows? So there's a lot of moments in this transaction where you'll second guess things, where you're thinking the person on their side, yes, they might be asking questions, but you might feel they're attacking you, or they're calling your baby ugly, and you're saying no, it's beautiful, but they're trying to get the best price, whereas you're also trying to do the same. So having someone on your team that can mentally be there to help you out. Then you also have to have the financials done. So your accountant, your CPA. Ideally, you're working with a wealth advisor way in advance where they can say, listen, if you get what the valuation person said, their range, this is kind of what you're able to spend or live on for the next few years. This is what it would look like after taxes are sold, or here's some ideas on how to possibly structure the sale. This also goes to that tax expert because, well, maybe you don't want all the cash on closing. Maybe you want some type of a seller's note or an earnout or deferred payments because of taxes. Or maybe you want to do this sale and put it in a trust. Or maybe invest in you know, a solar panel project for tax credits or multi-house. Who knows what it is? But having these people on your team where, okay, this is financially how it would look, tax wise how it would look, emotionally how it would look, valuation range. With all that, you have a pretty good idea. Now you're actually working with that individual to help you sell the company. And, well, depending on the size of the deal, smaller deal could be a business broker or an M&A advisor. Larger deal, and this is all relative numbers, so small and large. So, a few million business broker, 10 million up or 50 or whoever. There's different, everyone's got a different range that they're comfortable and they have experience working in. So definitely have those conversations with people, not what they want to work in, but hey, what range do you have experience in? Because deals that are half a million versus deals that are 50 million, the complexity, the people involved, completely different. And so then you have that person that's helping you sell the business. Now you also have your lawyer. The lawyer has to have that relationship with you in advance. Why do I say in advance? Well, they need to know your comfort level with this type of transaction. If the lawyer is one where everything is a red flag, but you're a green light go person, it's not gonna mesh well. Now, if you're a red light person and the lawyer's a red light person, and they're saying, "Hey, be careful of this," you go, "Thank you." That's a good match. The transaction will never get done because there'll always be red flags, but personality, is good. It might be more of a you're a red light person, get that yellow light lawyer that will say, "Hey, here are some warnings, but it's still doable. We should move forward." The green could be too aggressive. Who knows? But having that lawyer on your team as well, drafting the documents, the LOI, the definitive agreement, all whatever's needed for that transaction. There'll be a couple of other people involved, but that's the bulk of your team. So that's a lot of people there that most people are surprised that there's a lawyer, accountant, a wealth advisor, an emotional coach, all these people involved. But I mean, really, for these transactions, because most transactions also, people think they can just put their company up on a website and sell it over the weekend. Yes, that does happen, but in those transactions, no due diligence is done. There's no conversations. It's normally just here's some code. The person looks at the code, buys it. That's it. There could be a lot of problems later on, but most transactions, you're talking 6 months to 9 months from beginning to end. It's quite a long process, but if you think about it, you're packaging it, you're marketing it, you're going through due diligence, the buyer might be looking, depending on the size of the deal, for bank loans or raising capital, equity, or debt to fund it. Who knows? During the due diligence part to close, it could be a few months, it could be longer. It really depends. And going back, there's ups and downs in that whole process. There's questions that will need to be asked. So yeah, there's a lot of people involved in these processes, but they are major events in people's lives.
Great, thanks, Shawn. Another question. So that's really helpful because it's just the word that keeps coming through to me all the time is team. Have this team around you. Build your team. Have this sort of community of a team. That's rather than feeling or thinking that you've got to do it all on your own, because this is why these people do it, because they have the expertise that you don't necessarily have. Um, I've got some questions in front of me that, and this was one that I thought, what is a data room? So, and also, when should someone start to build one? Like, I've never heard of a data room, so very keen to hear more about that.
Okay, so a data room, and really this should be built out. Actually, it could be built out on day one while creating your business. So a data room is just, think of where all the documents for your company is stored. So it could be a Google folder, Box folder, a Dropbox, whatever it is. But and there's other programs online that are more specific for MMA, but just we'll go general. Google folder. In that main folder, there's 6 or 7 or 8 subfolders that say, here's marketing, here's HR, here's business, here's legal. And in these folders, you put your documents, your articles of incorporation. You might have your org chart. You might have your capitalization table, who owns what, your sales and marketing material, your pro forma, your, if you have patents, your IP information. You might have it puts all the information for your company in one central location. It could have your sales processes, your marketing processes. It could have your analytics that you're pulling from your website once a month, all that information there. And that data room, one, it's beautiful because you can always reference it, and and where it's a central depository for your company, and look at how things are progressing, looking to see if you're hitting those milestones, those goals that you want to hit. It's an area where you would then pull the information from to create, say you were going to sell your company, the marketing material. It's an area where if you gave access to someone, say someone not the company, they sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, because you want them to help you with the company. Maybe they're interested in buying it or representing it. They could look at this and go, okay, I'm looking at the financials for the last few years. I'm looking at the financial model for this next year. I'm looking at the org chart for the team. I'm looking at everything. I have a really great understanding of this business. I have a really great understanding of what a potential valuation of this business is. There's so much here. I don't know 100% of the business. Maybe I know 90% or so right now, just from looking at this, talking to the owner, talking to the executive team, go and do a site visit, who knows, but I can really have a great understanding of all this right now just from looking at the information, the documents that are here. So that's a data room. A data room is just a central place where the important information of the company is kept and tracked, and it does change over time and depend on the company. I mean, I saw one data room, it had all the transcripts from every podcast the CEO had ever been a guest on. That's very extreme, but that just shows you the level of detail some of these data rooms have. Others have the metrics that the company were tracking and the KPIs for the employees listed out and the reports. And it's just a very detailed thing where it will answer a lot of the buyers, a lot of the investors. And these data rooms are used for investors that are also not just only for someone that's looking to acquire, but the data rooms are there to answer the questions so people can get a very good sense of the business from just checking
Yeah.
them out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's where it makes lots of sense. And I would answer the next question where I said, when should someone start to build one? Obviously from the start, given what you've been advising and talking about so far, right from the beginning. You talked about metrics, so that was my next question. I've got a couple more questions, and then we're going to put it to the floor if anyone's got some questions for you. Two parts to this. How important is it to track metrics in the company? I think I can probably guess the answer to that. But secondly, what metrics should be tracked? That's probably more important.
Lesley, great question there. So, well, one, very important to track metrics because, well, KPI, key performance indicator, goals of the company, all those things. I mean, you have to be tracking them to know the direction of the company. Are the sales increasing? Is the lifetime value of a customer going up? Is the cost of acquiring a customer going down? What's the churn? There's so many things to track for a company, and sometimes companies track too much. Sometimes they don't track enough. Very rarely they track the key ones for their industry and what they should be checking. But those numbers are very important to the valuation of the company. The buyers are going to look, or investors, or whoever, at what's the growth of the company, lifetime value of the customer. Is it for that industry, that sector? Is it above average, average, below average? The cost of acquiring a customer, is it above average? Is it average, below average for that industry? What are their margins for everything? Going back, is it better than the industry average? What is it? So if you're tracking these numbers, these metrics, you're able to position your company's strengths and the value drivers when you're having these conversations, and you have the proof to point people to defend your case. You can show them the numbers, you can show them the growth, you can show them changes over time and go, look, this is where we are. This is what we've done to get here. This is what we're going to do. And this is where we think we will be based on this. And through our proven history, you can see the track record of us getting to where we say we will be. And here's all our KPIs from the past and that we've worked on and changes in that. Now, depending on what industry you're in, different things are going to be important. The margins are going to be different from different industries. The cost of acquiring a customer is going to be different for different industries, different channels that you use. Who knows? There's a lot there. So to find out, what you might want to do is talk to industry experts, talk to investors, talk to buyers, see what they want. And then based on that information, you know what to track, you know what you should be tracking. And well, it just gives you the overall kind of sense of what your focus should be on, especially if you want this exit in the future at that maximum value, or that investment dollar at the maximum value, or whatever it is. And you learn off others' mistakes.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Shawn. And that's a lovely segue into my last question for you. What are some common mistakes or problems that people face in this sort of sales process? And given that, one of the things that I really took note of when you said, the transactions can be very emotional. But what have you found in your experience and time that are some common mistakes or problems that people face in this space?
a lot of people celebrate way too early. So unfortunately, people think that if someone expressed a little interest, that the deal's done. And really, that's so far away. There's so many things that can happen from when someone express interest to throughout the due diligence period to close. The list can go on and on of reasons why a transaction never closes. And, well, some people purposely even try to stall the closing of a business to get better valuations, to get a better sales price for them. So one thing is celebrating way too soon in the process. Another is underestimated the resources that are needed for a sale of a company. Lawyers, they are, I don't want to say expensive, but they do cost, on an hourly basis. Tax advisors, wealth advisors, your broker, investment banker, there's a lot of fees that go into these transactions, but they're major transactions. Some people, yes, they do everything on their own. Do they get the best value? Who knows? Possibly. But there's a lot of areas where mistakes could be done that could haunt them way after the transactions, where they could be liable for things they did not know, for information that maybe was said or written or however. There's a lot of potential pitfalls. So celebrating too soon, trying to do everything on their own, not getting the right advisors or team with them. The team, one of the things, gosh, that you'll see people do with, well, going back to lawyers, they might get a family friend or someone that practices a different type of law that's not used to, doesn't have experience in M&A law, to get them on their team. Well, if that's not their expertise and they're someone on the other side of the table that is theirs, that's a huge disadvantage for you. Other things is not having the plan after the day after close. Some people, well, they've spent every waking moment at their business. They don't have hobbies anymore. They lost touch with friends and family, and then suddenly depend on the deal. And most deals will have them period involved for who knows 6 months to a year or maybe longer, but there will come a day where that person is no longer there day to day, and that's a huge life change for them. Or even another thing, that change, they may have not been an employee for 15 years, whereas part of the sale is they have to stay on for 6 months and work for that new owner. Can they emotionally handle that? So the list goes on and on, from celebrating too soon to the not sure what to do after to not sure who's on your team to the list goes on and on.
Yeah. Had some great points there. Thanks, Shawn. And interesting, when you said about the not having the plan for the day after the close, takes me back to one of the earlier comments you made, or pieces of advice was, how far in advance should someone prepare to sell their company? You said from day one, so that needs to be part of that plan from day one too. Okay, hey, thanks very much for that, Shawn. Fantastic to get your wisdom and experience and knowledge in this space. I'm going to open up to the floor for any questions. If anyone would like to ask Shawn a question on anything that's been that he's discussed already, or obviously in relation to the topic, which is about what makes a company saleable.
And Lesley, I would just like to welcome Jordan, who just joined us. I was doing the chats, so I'm not sure when he joined us. I also like to welcome Daniel, who's also one of our community members. So I'm curious, between Naj and Nathan, who are both very entrepreneurial, if there's anything about the current businesses that you're running, if there are any light bulbs that came up as Shawn was speaking.
Go ahead. Thank you, Liesel. And thank you so much, Shawn, for sharing all those insights about preparing one's company to sell. My question is, based on your experience, how long is the, usual process for these deals? I mean, for both companies who prepared all the necessary requirements before selling the company, and for those companies that have incomplete documentation or haven't prepared their team for the transition?
No, it's a good question. So the range of time, it varies so much. So say you don't have your data room built out, have to start gathering everything. I mean, right there, I've seen companies take months to put that together. I've seen others take a weekend. It's incredible the difference between companies to get that. So thinking of just on that, to prepare your company to go out to market could take as little as a few weeks, or it could take, I mean, there's never a set date then because, well, your financials get outdated. You need to update those. Maybe some people on your team leave, so you need to update that. So if you're slow to it, it could always drag on forever. So with that, if say a normal process of building out a data room, creating the market materials, going out to market with the buyer's list, having the initial conversations, negotiating a letter of intent, picking the one partner to go into due diligence with, and then closing. You're talking on average 6 to 9 months. Now, going back to transactions, do they happen online where someone puts up a company and it sells over the weekend and there's no due diligence and anything? Yep, that happens. Are there processes where due diligence turns out to be 9, 10 months because red flags surface, people need to make some changes for others to get comfortable, documents need to be redone, quality of earnings need to be done a second or third time or whatever? Yep, that happens as well. But I would say it's pretty consistent that if you plan for that 6 to 9 months, you'll be safe. The another issue that actually I should have mentioned it when Lesley asked the last question of mistakes is people don't plan long enough, and because of that, either one, they run out of money and they get desperate. Two, they have significant others that are very upset with them because they thought things should be done, and because of that, travel had to be put on hold or something else like that, and it takes an emotional toll. But they're not planning for the length of the transaction. So think, yeah, 6 to 9 months from start to finish is normal.
Thanks, Shawn, for the tips. I have another question. Like, for people who own small scale businesses, like me or the listeners, can they also sell the business? Or, is there a level of scale that the company needs to be at before they can sell their company? Because I'm kind of new with this M&A. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So all companies, I mean, they can have, you could just have a logo on a website, and that could be enough to sell the company. And there's one page websites that people sell all the time on some of these website brokerage accounts. Maybe you have a lawn mowing business that has 10 steady customers in this neighborhood. Maybe another lawn mowing company wants to acquire that, or someone sees that and goes, wow, that's a better start than if I were to start on my own. I'm interested in acquiring. So the size of the company and the size of the deal, it could vary so much from, well, maybe you just have a cool name that someone wants to buy, nothing else, to, these billion-dollar transactions. So you never know the size. I'm trying to say there's not a limit to the size of the value, but if you do have that company that's just, say that lawn mowing business that has sales of $10,000 or $15,000 a year, we'll say, mowing a couple of lawns every month. You're not going to hire a team, a lawyer that charges $1,000 an hour to do the paperwork, an investment banker that charges $250,000 to, you're just not going to have that same team or sell it in the same way as a deal that's a $500 million deal. So, I mean, for that, you might just put in an ad in the local newspaper or post it on your Facebook page or Instagram saying you're selling your company, anyone interested, or you might just, put some flyer, who knows? But I mean, everything, just like your baseball, I'm not sure who here collected baseball cards or that growing up, but a couple cards had more value than others, and you just trade with your friends or sell to your friends or that. If you had a super expensive card, maybe you sell it online or maybe you bring it to an auction house. It really depends on the situation, and understanding the valuation really helps with knowing the best suitable venue or avenue to sell the company in best way, best manner.
So interesting. Thank you, Shawn. How do we know our company's valuation? Is there a way to measure
Great
that?
question. So there's different ways to value a company. You could either do it off, one way is multiples. So like EBITDA, earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization. Maybe, for a larger company, it could go, this type of company, this sector, this size will sell between 5 and 7 times EBITDA. Or maybe it's revenue based. Maybe it's 2 to 3 times revenue for this type of company. Or maybe it's based off seller discretionary earnings for smaller companies. It really depends. So there's one way to value it, multiples. Then there's another way of valuing it, comparing it to other types of transactions that have happened. Then there's the valuation of maybe the assets of the company and what you would get for selling those assets. Then there's a way of valuing based off how much would it cost someone to copy this company. There's many different ways to put a valuation range around a company. So what a lot of experts will do, valuation experts, if you were to get this done, is they'll take 5 or so different ways to value a company, and they'll put them together side by side and kind of average it out and give a different weighted average to them. So it might be, we'll just say, doing this method, the company's range is between 8 and 10 million. Doing this method, the company's valuation is at 3 million. Doing this method, the company's valuation is at 6 million. And a couple other methods, and then put it all together. We estimate the company's valuation is about 5 to 6 million based on all these. Now, you might get lucky and have that buyer that says, we need this. We love your customers. All this stuff is mentioned before. We'll give you 20 million for this company. Or maybe no one out there is interested and you only are able to get 2 million for it because you're selling off all the assets on a fire sale auction. Who knows? But that's how the valuation is for companies. So focus on the sector, the size. There's several methods out there. Kind of take an average or mean, and then ultimately the value of the company is based on what someone else will pay for it. So even though someone out there might say, hey, my company is worth 20 million, unless there's that person to actually pay the 20 million, well, it's not worth that. So ultimately it comes down to is the other side of the table.
Thank you
And
so
that's
much,
where all these
Shawn.
experts
I'm
come
done.
in.
Yeah, I want to make a couple of points about what you've shared today, Shawn, which has been so enlightening. And I've been thinking about my own business as well. And I suppose the key points, I've sort of circled them in red. The key points that have come up for me is that keeps coming back is, doing it from day one, that putting that plan in place, thinking about how, selling that company from day one when you start is such a surefire way of being, having things in place that you then know what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. You therefore know what metrics to collect. You therefore know, what's going to be, what's the word I want, the influences on that price, all of those sorts of things that you've been talking about. And I think too, for me, critically is having that team around you. I mean, I put the term create your advisory team, your coach, your mentor, your wealth advisor, your lawyer, all of those people that you've identified and talked about as being rather than relying on yourself or thinking like, I have no idea how to do this, so I just have to go and put it out and hope that someone buys it. That there are some very fundamental, very strategic decisions that we can make around this when we're thinking about selling our company. And even if we haven't started at day one, which I know I didn't, put my hand up, that whole idea of like, it's not too late. actually start thinking about that, writing down what you do, putting that data room, getting your data room set up, etc., etc. So it's been very, very, very helpful. Thanks, Shawn, and so insightful. And I'm sure a lot of people have got a lot out of this discussion today.
And if you're looking to advocate for a mentoring program in your organization and need some help to set up, implement, or review the results of your mentoring program, please message us here too. So, particularly Lesley and myself, we are the core team of our lead mentoring program management services that we are offering to companies, organizations to help them implement their mentoring programs. And as research would show, the mentoring programs assist in developing more engagements within the employees, improving productivity, reducing the cost of attrition, which means hiring and retraining or training. We would be happy to help you in setting up your mentoring programs. And then definitely be part of our house here on Clubhouse and share what we do here in the Mentoring Club with your network. Feel free to connect with me here and again on LinkedIn. We do have our monthly sessions here that are focused around mentoring. In this particular case, we focused on the ecosystem around the startups and how they may want to think about the sale of their company. How can you help in that process of preparing a company for sale?
Liesel, thank you. So that's pretty much all we do, to be honest, where we can definitely give feedback on your company of kind of the value drivers, the valuation range, and that. So, but our focus is that marketing and sales process where we come in and work with a company to build out that data room, make sure it's pretty complete, that we are able to use that to build the marketing materials. Now, there's some buzzwords you'll hear of blind profile and confidential information memorandum and that, but we take the information in the data room to build the marketing material, to reach out to the buyers list that we create based on networks, research, and that. And we facilitated and managed the negotiation process from the outreach to throughout the due diligence to the close, coaching our clients the entire process of the due diligence and all that, getting them prepared for the meetings, prepping them on how to respond to questions, really emphasizing those value drivers to the buyer. We're there from start to finish, helping the client, uh, exit the way they want to exit.
Thank you very much, Lesley. Appreciate it. And thank you very much, Shawn, for all the knowledge sharing that you've shared with us today.
I just want to thank Liesel for the opportunity to speak, and I also want to thank the Mentoring Club and Daniel, who's here, and I've had the opportunity to have some of the most amazing mentees over the years. So I want to just thank you, Liesel, and everyone in the organization and everyone that came here to support. So thanks for the opportunity.
You're very welcome, and thank you for always taking the time to support us and share your knowledge with our community. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Daniel, for being for catching up with us. Always a pleasure to have you in our sessions. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the journey and reach out if you need anything. Take care.
Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, Liesel. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right. Thank you.